The British Army in the Second World War has often been overshadowed by the Soviet Union's immense sacrifices on the Eastern Front and by America's industrial might. Yet Britain's soldiers fought across almost every theatre of the war, from the steaming jungles of Burma to the deserts of North Africa, from the mountains of Italy to the hedgerows of Normandy, and all the way into Germany itself. But how capable was the British Army? Did it really have the strength, leadership, and skill to defeat Nazi Germany? Or was it carried to victory by its allies? At the outbreak of war in September 1939, the British Army was still a small professional force. It rapidly expanded, but when Germany invaded France and the Low Countries in May 1940, the British Expeditionary Force, or BEF, under Lord Gort, was tested almost to the point of destruction. The BEF fought bravely at Arras, where heavy British Matilda tanks briefly stunned Rommel's 7th Panzer Division. But outnumbered and outflanked, the BEF had to retreat to Dunkirk. Operation Dynamo evacuated over 338,000 Allied troops, including nearly 200,000 British soldiers. The escape was miraculous, but the army lost almost all its equipment and stores. In 1940, the British Army was not yet capable of taking on the Wehrmacht head-to-head. In fact, it could well be argued that the British were only saved by Hitler's decision to halt the panzer units heading towards Dunkirk on the night of the 23rd of May 1940, thus giving the BEF the opportunity to escape. Whilst the army rebuilt at home, the war spread to the Empire. In North Africa, under General Richard O'Connor, the British launched Operation Compass in December 1940 with just 36,000 men. Facing over 150,000 Italians, O'Connor's Western Desert Force smashed through fortified camps at Sidi Barrani, captured 130,000 prisoners, and overran Cyrenaica. This stunning victory showed what the British Army could do with good leadership, mobility, and careful planning. But then came Rommel. With the newly arrived Afrika Korps, the Germans pushed the British back to Tobruk and beyond. For nearly 2 years, the Desert War swung back and forth. It was only with Montgomery's arrival in 1942 that the British gained consistency. At El Alamein, the 8th Army, made up of British, Australian, New Zealand, South African, and Indian divisions, decisively defeated Rommel. Montgomery carefully prepared, massing 200,000 men and 1,000 tanks. After 10 days of fighting, the Afrika Korps was forced into retreat, ending in their surrender in Tunisia in May 1943. North Africa proved the British Army could defeat German forces in open battle. Next came Italy. In July 1943, the British 8th Army under Montgomery landed in Sicily, alongside their Commonwealth allies. They fought battles at Catania and across the mountainous interior, forcing the Germans into a long, fighting retreat. In January 1944, the Allies attempted to outflank the German defensive lines with a landing at Anzio. The British 1st Infantry Division, commanded by Major General W.R.C. Penny, spearheaded the assault, supported by the 24th Guards Brigade, elements of the 5th Division, and British commandos. Initially, the landings were successful, but the beachhead soon became a deadly trap. German forces under Field Marshal Albert Kesselring quickly counterattacked. For months, the British 1st Division and Guards Brigade endured ferocious artillery bombardments, rain and mud, holding a fragile line under constant pressure from German panzer divisions. Casualties were heavy. Some battalions were reduced to a fraction of their original strength. Despite the hardship, the British forces clung on. When Operation Diadem broke the Gustav Line in May 1944, the Anzio troops finally advanced, paving the way for the liberation of Rome. Then came Normandy. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, British and Canadian forces landed on Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches. The British 50th Northumbrian Division stormed Gold. The 3rd Infantry Division attacked Sword, and the 6th Airborne Division captured bridges inland. The fighting that followed was some of the toughest of the war. The British Second Army under General Miles Dempsey fought at Caen against elite German units, including the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend. Progress was slow, but through grinding attrition battles like Operation Epsom and Operation Goodwood, the British tied down German armour, allowing the Americans to break out at St. Lo. By August, the Germans were in retreat, with the British playing a central role in the Falaise Pocket that destroyed much of the German 7th Army. While Europe grabbed headlines, the British Army also fought a brutal campaign in Burma against the Japanese. Commanded by General William Slim, the British 14th Army included British, Indian, African and Gurkha divisions. They faced harsh jungle terrain, monsoon rains, and an enemy skilled in infiltration tactics. After setbacks in 1942, Slim reorganized, in 1944, at Imphal and Kohima. The 14th Army decisively defeated the Japanese. Outnumbered and surrounded, the defenders held their ground until relief arrived. These victories marked the turning point in the Burma campaign. By 1945, Slim's army advanced hundreds of miles, recapturing Burma and inflicting catastrophic losses on the Japanese. Many historians now regard Slim as Britain's most talented general of the war. What then were the consistent strengths and weaknesses of the British Army? The army was remarkably resilient. From Dunkirk to Burma, it absorbed defeats, yet came back stronger. British artillery was consistently excellent. The 25-pounder gun was reliable, accurate, and available in huge numbers. German commanders often remarked that British artillery fire was among the most effective they faced. In the air-land coordination field, British units excelled by 1944, using RAF fighter bombers to smash German columns in Normandy and beyond. The army also benefited from leadership. Generals like Montgomery and Slim may have had very different styles, but both knew how to prepare their forces for tough campaigns and to instill discipline and morale. British tank design lagged behind. While the Sherman Firefly eventually gave British units a capable answer to German Tigers and Panthers, earlier models like the Crusader and Cromwell were often outgunned and under-armoured. British infantry tactics could be rigid. At Caen, for example, reliance on set-piece offensives sometimes played into German defensive strengths. The army was never as large as the Red Army or as well-resourced as the Americans, which meant it often had to fight with economy of force. German generals left mixed assessments. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel respected British tenacity in the desert, though he believed their armoured tactics were initially clumsy. By contrast, SS Commander Sepp Dietrich complained in Normandy that British artillery and air power made movement almost impossible. Heinz Guderian, the father of German armoured warfare, grudgingly admitted after the war that while British tanks were usually inferior, British soldiers showed steadiness under fire, and their artillery was second to none. So, how capable was the British Army? In 1940, it was small, under-equipped and unready for modern war, but by 1945, it had become a global force, capable of defeating the German and the Japanese army in the field. It was never as large as the Red Army, nor as lavishly supplied as the US Army, but it fought on almost every front, from Dunkirk to Berlin, from El Alamein to Burma. It liberated occupied nations and endured immense hardships. During the war, the British Army suffered over 700,000 killed and wounded. Its achievements were built on determination, adaptation, and leadership. By 1945, the British Army was no longer the unready force of 1940. It was one of the key instruments in the defeat of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. So what do you think? How capable was the British Army in World War II? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, then please like, share, and subscribe for more analysis of the Second World War.